going to be helping us out. And I really need somebody who's a good speaker, who's well respected in the industry, and knows how to communicate with people. None of those people are available. So I thought I would ask you if you would come instead. So although you should get somebody who is a professional speaker, you're not going to get that. Instead, you're going to get a fat, washed-up fireman. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, and I'm going to explain this book, and then we'll move on with the rest of the evening. I spent 30 years with Fairfax County Fire Department. My last assignment was as the senior paramedic and the shift commander captain on Engine 427 in West Springfield. And I loved that job. I loved working for the fire department, but it was not an easy job. I remember my very first real critical call that I went to. I was probably 20. I'd been in the department about 8 months. We got a call for a car fire. We show up, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. The car's on its hood. The flames are about 20 feet high. And I pull the line off. I'm putting the fire out. And then I see something by the window. And I realize it's an arm hanging out the window. And this car is completely engulfed in flames. And while I'm trying to wrap my head around what I'm looking at, I hear this woman screaming, Paul, 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 get out of the car. You're dying. That sound came from his girlfriend, who was following in the car behind him, where he had just left his 21st birthday party. I'm putting the fire out. I see this woman running towards me. I dropped the hose. I wasn't even thinking. I dropped the hose and I went over and I picked her up like in a bear hug and walked her away from the fire. And she's punching me in the face and she's screaming, and understandably so. One of the other guys takes over. We put the fire out. She's gone. It's about an hour later. And I'm standing by the car. And I can smell what smells like burnt peppermint. My lieutenant, Art Varnu, was a combat tour Marine in Vietnam. And Lieutenant Varnu probably didn't say 20 words a day. He was the ultimate strong silent type, right? Matter of fact, in the fire department, almost everybody gets a nickname, or you get teased or called something. His nickname was the Duke, like John Wayne Duke, because this guy never got upset, always even keeled. Now, I never called him anything but sir or lieutenant. I sure didn't call him Duke. He comes up to me, he sees me standing there, and he goes, "Son, do you smell that?" I said, "Yes, Lieutenant." He said, "Son, that's what death smells like. And if you're going to stay in this job, you have to get used to it." He walked off. Now, that's about as close as Art Varnu can come to giving you a hug. Fast forward 20 years later. I'm at the fire station. I've been promoted, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. Now I'm a lieutenant, and I run a mobile intensive care unit. So when we go out, it's not for a broken arm or a nosebleed. If they send us out as a medic unit, as a mobile intensive care unit, to a broken arm or a nosebleed or somebody with the flu, it's because either we're the only unit available or we are so close, we're just going to start until a basic unit gets there, and then we're going to turn them over. So, needless to say, after 20 years, I've run a couple calls. Get this call, small fire at a pool house, no big deal. They don't even dispatch the medic unit. I'm sitting there, the tones go off, and I get up and start headed toward the medic unit because the tones went off. Of course it's for me. We're the busiest unit in the station. And they go, engine 1, respond for an outside fire at the pool house. I go sit back down. I'm like, ha, see y'all suckers. I don't know, we're watching television. 20 seconds later, squad 1 assist, engine 1 for the fire. So I start laughing at the squad guys. A couple minutes go by, and the tones go off. And then I hear medic 1, EMS 3, battalion 6 respond for the firefighter down at so-and-so and so. And what I didn't know was the engine driver, when they pulled up to the fire, walked around back, pulled the line off to hook it up to the hydrant, but the coupling fell off and hit him in the head. And he fell off the back of the engine like this. Of course, all the other firefighters, they're still sitting in the engine, they're waiting. What's going on? What is taking so long? What's he doing? Finally, the captain comes out and sees his driver face up, unconscious, blood running out of his head. I show up. I'm on the call. I'm in charge. I don't even want to be there, much less be in charge. And blood is running out of my coworker's head like somebody shot him in the ear with a pistol. I'd never seen that much blood come out of somebody's head before for a closed head injury. We pick him up, and we head to the hospital. And I tell my driver, we were so overwhelmed, I pointed to one of the guys on the squad and I said, you're driving us. And all the other medics got in the back. We're headed to the hospital. It's taken forever. He's bleeding. He's fighting with us. I can't get an IV in him. I was so afraid he was going to start projectile vomiting, which means he'll lose his airway, which is very common for a head injury. It's taking us forever. And I hear my driver go, hey, Lieutenant, the interstate shut down here. I've got to go a different way. I said, okay, dude, I don't care what you do, just get me to the hospital. 3-4 minutes go by. Where are we? I look at the window. I'll never forget this. I look through the window of the medic unit, and what do I see? Rescue 1. And I'm like, how can I be seeing Rescue 1? That's the heavy-duty rescue squad at my station. How can we be halfway to the hospital? I'm like, what are you doing? What I later found out was we'd come back to the scene. I'll get back to that. We get to the hospital. Right before we get there, I finally get an IV in him. We give him some drugs that I don't have orders to give, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to ask permission. I told him what I was doing. I got on the radio and I said, this is Medic 25, this is Medic 1, and I didn't know it at the time, but the entire county is listening to me. The fire chief is listening to me. We get thousands of calls a year, so a lot of calls don't get monitored by anybody other than the dispatcher and the people that are on it. I got on the radio and I said, if there is a unit at Fairfax Hospital, I need help. The heavy-duty rescue squad from Station 18, who'd been monitoring the call, drove to the station. They were so excited, when they opened up the back doors, they just yanked the stretcher out, and of course, that pulled my IV out. I come in, I give my report to the doctor. It is not good. I'm trying to wrap my head around what I saw. And I go outside and I'm like, dude, I'm wearing my driver out. Somebody is going to get their head ripped off. And I go out, and my driver is still sitting in the front of the medic unit with his hands on the steering wheel, looking forward, and he's completely catatonic. His brother had been killed in a motorcycle accident 6 months earlier, and when he was there and saw our coworker, he saw his brother. Eventually, an officer comes in and says, Lieutenant Beasley, you have been relieved. And I go, okay. Normally, we run 4, 5, 10, 14, 16 calls a day. And you go home when you're done, not when your shift's over, because if there's nobody to replace you, congratulations, you just got 12 more hours after the 24 hours that you worked already. This is like 4 in the afternoon. I go home. I don't call my wife. I just walk in the door, and she knows something's wrong. But I don't ever come home. Or if I'm sick, she knows. I'm at home. I get a call that says, Lieutenant Beasley, you're not going to be coming back to work for a while. You've got an appointment with Dr. Elliott. Here's his address, and you're going to be there at such and such a date. Do you understand, Lieutenant? Yeah, I understand. And I'm thinking, man, I got to go back to work. I don't need to not be at work. I need to go back to work. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I started having nightmares. And I don't mean one or two. I go in and see the shrink, and here's what's crazy. It is exactly to the day 20 years I had been in the department. I'd been in the department exactly 20 years. Psychiatrist and I chit-chat for a few minutes, and he looks at me and he goes, son, do you know why you're here? I said, yes, sir, because of this call, and I can't take it right now. And he goes, do you think this qualifies as a critical incident? Which is our terminology for a really bad call. I said, yes, sir. I think it does. And he goes, can you tell me about the first critical call you ever went to? And like that, I was back at the fire, looking at the guy's arm hanging out the window, hearing that girl scream, Paul, get out of the car, you're dying. It had been 20 years. He says, tell me about that call. So I told him what I told y'all. He says, Lieutenant, how long have you been on the job? I said, well, Doc, oddly enough, 20 years today. Okay. He said, how many of these you think you run a year? I said, I don't know, Doc. On a good year, you run one. On a bad year, you might run 2 or 3. He said, how long you been in? I said, 20 years. He said, tell me about critical call number 15. And I go, sir? He goes, tell me about critical call 15. I go, Doc, I don't understand what you're saying. He said, well, let me slow it down for you. Tell me about critical call 15, and I'll lose it. I go, dude, I don't know. And he goes, that's right, son. That's why you're here. Because all of you guys are the same. Because I didn't know this at the time. He also dealt with the sheriff's department and dealt with the deputies. He goes, you have a call and it's bad and you push it down. And you have a call and it's bad and you push it down. And you have a call and it's bad, you push it down. And then one day, boom, That's why you're having nightmares. That's why you're seeing all these other calls that you've run. Now, fortunately, about 10 years earlier, I had discovered fly fishing because I ran a rescue call with the most famous popping bug maker on the East Coast at the time, but I didn't know who he was. And I'm just chit-chatting in the way to the hospital. I go, "Are you out here fishing?" He said, "Yeah, I fly fish." I said, "Oh, I've always wanted to learn how to fly fish." He said, "Well, son, I got a question." He said, "Do you golf?" I said, "No, sir, I don't golf." He said, "That's good, son, because you can't afford to golf and fly fish." He said, "Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you my phone number, and you're going to call me, and I'm going to take you fly fishing." Now, this guy's probably late 70s. I'm probably 23, 24. I don't have gray hair, and I weigh about 40 pounds less than I do now, so I actually look like somebody. And I said, I don't think I can do that." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Well, to be honest, sir, I don't think the fire chief would be okay with that." And he goes, "Son, are you going to tell the fire chief?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, neither am I, so let's go fishing." So he took me out. I caught my first fish on a fly rod. I caught a bluegill. And that bluegill changed my life. And I have never done drugs in my life. I can't imagine anybody being any higher on cocaine than I was when I had that bluegill on that 4-way. No way. So fly fishing helped keep me sane. Eventually, I was returned to duty, served because of some good counseling, got promoted, and served 10 more years. I don't know how many people I trained in that amount of time. Post-event. Well, I've been doing fly fishing. I've been writing for a bunch of magazines. I've written a couple of guidebooks. And the day my second guidebook comes out, I get a phone call from my friend Alan Folger. And Alan, pretty well-known artist in North Carolina, and he was a veteran from Vietnam. He calls me up, and we're going through the book. I'm so excited. And he goes, "I got an idea for your next book." I go, "Alan, I just finished a book. I'm not doing it. What are you talking about?" "No, I got the perfect book for you to do next." I go, "Okay, Alan, throw it on me." He goes, "You need to write a book about Project Healing Waters." And I said, "Absolutely not. That ain't going to happen. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know enough about the military. I can't do it." "No, you need to do it." "I'm not doing it, Alan." And Alan Folger called me every month for about 8 months in a row. The last time I answered the call, he said, "Have you started yet?" I said, "Alan, listen, I've told you, I'm not doing it. I'm not qualified. Never been in the military. I'm not doing it." Dead silence on the phone. And he goes, "Beau, sooner or later, they're going to quit fighting in Afghanistan, and they're going to quit fighting in Iraq, and they're going to forget all about these boys and these women, and you can't let that happen." Now, Alan knows what he's talking about because when he came back from Vietnam, the media had done such a phenomenal job of demonizing the American servicemen. They were under orders as soon as you land in the U.S., you go straight to the bathroom and you get out of your clothes. You get out of your uniform and you get on civilian clothes to keep from being accosted at the airport. So Alan knew what he was talking about. And I go, "All right, look, Alan, okay, dude, fine. Let me talk to my wife, who edits everything I do. Otherwise, dog would be spelled with 2 G's. I said, I'm going to talk to her, but she's not going to go for this. She's not going to want to edit that. She's sick to death of editing my fly fishing stuff. I said, plus my publisher is not going to put up any money for this. It's not going to work. But I'll ask him. I go home, very next day. Get off duty, go home, talk to my wife. Hey, Alan Folger's got this idea, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, "Well, I think it's a great idea." I said, "What?" "Oh, no, it's a great idea. You absolutely should do it." I said, "What?" She goes, "Honey, you love veterans and you love fly fishing and you've been with Project Healing Water since the very first time they came in existence. You should do it." And I go, okay. And I'm thinking, still okay. I'm going to call my publisher and he's going to kill this because he ain't going to put up 30 grand for this book to come. And that's about what it's going to cost, especially for some guy who doesn't know what he's doing. So I call up my publisher and I say, hey, Howard, go through this shop. And he goes, oh, yeah, we'll do it. I said, what? He said, yeah, I'm a volunteer for Project Healing Waters at Fort Huachuca out in Arizona. I said, okay, I got two requirements. Requirement number one is Project Healing Waters doesn't put up a dime. So when this thing fails, because the I didn't have any idea it was going to be any good, they're not out a dime. And every book that sells, they get a cut, whether they had anything to do with it or not. So rather than me getting all the royalties that I would, instead, I get a very small portion and then Project Healing Waters gets it. My idea at the time was that the programs could buy them and resell them or whatever. And he goes, okay, we're going to do it. And I go, great. I got no idea what I'm doing. So I start. And what do you do when you've been writing guidebooks? You interview a few guys, a few gals, you write it all down, give it to my wife. Say, hey, honey, I want you to read this. Tell me what you think. I give it to her on a Sunday afternoon. By Wednesday morning, she still hasn't said anything. And I go, so, what'd you think of the narratives that I did? She goes, well, they're pretty good, which means they suck. And I go, okay, what's the deal? She goes, honey, you don't know these guys. She said, I know you. You're an emotional writer, and you write about how you feel, and you know them, but you don't know these guys, and your readers are going to know that you don't know these guys. And I got really angry because I'd already put a lot of time into it. And I go, okay, great. Well, I told everybody that would listen to me that I don't know what I'm doing. She said, aren't there programs near the house? I said, yeah, there's one in Quantico. At the time, it was the only Marine program. And there's one in Fort Belvoir. She said, great. Don't write another word. Quit writing. Don't talk to anybody else. Just go to program meetings. Go be with them. She said, you need to be like those old World War II guys that used to go out and embed themselves with the troops and then write about what they saw. You need to be with these guys, then write about them. I had to meet with the program lead out of Quantico, Fort Belvoir, told them my idea. It was Marty Laxberg and Bob Gardner, and they said, great, we're all for it under one condition. Don't ever get between us and the veterans, ever. They're always going to come first. I go, okay, cool, I got no problem with that. So from the day of concept to the day of publication was 8 years. I estimated that I spent about 5,000 hours of my own time doing this. And you're like, Beau, my God, why in the world did it take so long? Well, imagine this. Hey, listen, I'd really like you to tell me about the worst day of your entire life, how it made you feel, and how 20 years later you're still struggling and you're still, and I want to tell everybody about it. So what I did was I told every one of them the same thing. Look, I'm in the outdoor industry as a writer, so technically I'm part of the media, but I don't lie for a living. Unlike most of the media today, I'm going to interview you and I'm going to write down your story. And then I'm going to give it to you and you're going to tell me whether it's right or not. And if you want to make changes, we're going to make changes. And if you want to take stuff out, we're going to take stuff out. And if you want somebody mentioned, we're going to mention it. And then I'll rewrite it. And you don't have 80% control or 90% control, you got 100% control. And if at the end you're like, no, I just can't do it, and we won't. And they go, okay. Well, I did that 40 times. Find the person, get to know them, You're there, and sometimes I'd have to interview them 2 or 3 times because they didn't tell me everything at one time, particularly if it was really bad. And the thing that got me, I was still kind of stuck. I mean, I kind of sort of knew what I wanted to do, but I still wasn't exactly there in my own head. And Ed Nicholson called me one day and he goes, hey, you want to fish the Middle Fork or South Fork? Excuse me, South Fork of the Salmon River in Idaho. And I go, well, and I'm kind of hemming and hawing, and he goes, well, do you or don't you? I said, well, look, Ed, I got a wife. I have 2 kids. I work 56 hours a week for the fire department. I'm writing for 3 magazines right now, and I want to kind of do this book. I can't afford to go. And then I got to hear what a Navy captain sounds like when he's angry. And you don't want to be on the receiving end of that. I can hear him right now. I didn't ask you if you could afford to go. I asked you if you wanted to go. I said, yes, sir. He said, good, because I want you to go, because when you go to one of these outings, you're going to see the magic, and you need to see it in person. Okay. 6 months later, I'm at Dulles Airport, get on the plane, fly out, and we're meeting everybody, and nobody in the room, like maybe 3 people knew each other. It's like 20 of us. And the first night we all stayed in the hotel together before we went out on the river for a week together. Nobody knows anybody. My roommate is a medic, a combat medic from the Army. I'm sure the fact that there was a combat medic and a paramedic in the same hotel room, I'm sure that was a fluke. I'm sure Ed didn't put any thought into that. So it took about 5 minutes, and then Brian Mancini and I started going back and forth. And we hit it off. But it didn't take me long to realize, man, Brian's been through some stuff. I consider myself a pretty good hardcore medic, but I don't know if I could do what he's doing. He's working on people that he knows. And we're talking, and of course I say, yeah, one time I went to a double shooting. I went to a hanging, and I know this sounds bad, but we're doing the whole war story thing. And then Brian goes to a place that I couldn't go. I will never forget this conversation. He said to me, Beau, I've lost my health, I've lost my career, and I've lost my wife in the service of my country. What else do I have to give up? And I didn't know what to say. One of the few times in my life where I didn't say anything, just shut up. And it really dawned on me how much veterans were affected versus a civilian. For me, the war in Iraq was 90 seconds with a cup of coffee and CBS News. And Brian was living it. So when my book came around, I interviewed him. And then I got a call that Brian had killed himself. And I dedicated this book to Brian, and his father, his daddy, who I'm still in contact with, got the very first copy. This book has 32 real-life narratives. You said, no, wait a minute, Beau, you told me you interviewed 40 people. I did. And I had about 8 of them at the very end. Couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. Everyone in this book is real. You're going to see their faces. You're going to read their names. We have people from the Army. We have people from the Navy. I even have people from the Air Force in. And what I would say to you is, most Americans have no concept of what it costs for us to be free. No idea. And I was talking earlier today how people don't appreciate the water till the well runs dry. And thankfully, maybe we, as civilians, we never will. I had plenty of guys I interviewed. Honestly, I could write 2 more books about what I couldn't put in this book. Because once they started telling me stuff, they were telling me. And I was interviewing people with a tape recorder, a phone. They'd be into it, and then he'd reach over and cut the recorder off and keep talking. And sometimes I'd listen 2-3 hours at a time. I'd replay the tapes, well, not tape, but on the phone, driving somewhere in my car and hear the same story over and over again. The point I'm trying to make is there are real people here, and these are success stories of real people. I'm just going to give you 3 real quick, and then I'm going to tell you that I wish I could tell you the stories of the ones that I couldn't tell you. People who call me up and go, I can't do it. Or in one particular case, the woman was sexually assaulted. She's like, I don't want to be known as that girl. I don't want my career to be summed up with this is what people remember me by. I'll forget, one guy that called me up, and his story was phenomenal. It was an awesome story. He goes, hey man, I just got hired by an agency that doesn't exist, so you can't write about me at all. Click. Okay, that's the deal, right? That's the game. Real quick. Jessica Callahan still lives in Sweetwater, Tennessee. Phenomenal lady, worked for the Navy, had a full scholarship to college, 100% ride. At college, sees the plane flying to the Twin Towers and goes, well, I'm done with college. I'm going to serve my country. Went to work as like an electrical person in the Navy, got injured during a training event and had debilitating pain. By the time she was about 23, she was in a wheelchair. And she was telling me what it was like to finally get handicap tag. Now you can't look, Jessica looks like a model, literally. And she got handicap tags because her back hurt so much every time she took a step. And she said, Beau, the first time I went to the grocery store and pulled in with a handicap tag, I got out, I got halfway from my vehicle to the grocery store, and some person I'd never seen in my life said, what are you doing parking in the handicap zone? There's nothing wrong with you. And now I can tell you, Jessica is very mobile and is a mama. And she's married and she's extremely happy. I just saw her in Tennessee about 2 weeks ago. You'll read about Jerry Myron. Jerry got drafted into the Army, okay, well, I want to be in Special Forces. Well, you know, that ain't going to work out for you. You're not going to do that. Well, we got a dog opening, dog handler position. You can do the dog handler thing. Jerry, okay. All right, well, that sounds kind of cool. So he trains Rebel. Actually, he said the dog trained him. All kinds of combat, all kinds of fighting. And Jerry was so attached to his service dog, who was incredible at being able to tell where they were going into an ambush. He didn't know how many people they saved. But I didn't know there's things you learn when you're a writer. They put tags in the dog's ears, just like a dog tag, except it's a tag for. He convinces his commanding officer, his immediate supervisor, to write a report saying the dog was dead, got killed in action. He went to the vet, and they cut the tag out of the dog's ear. He was about to leave, and his commanding officer calls him in and goes, Jerry, I know you're getting ready to go home. Tell me some about your service here and what you and Rebel have done. And he said, well, we saved guys here and saved guys there. And because the guy that wasn't good enough for Special Forces was the point man for the Special Forces team when they went into the jungle many times. I didn't know that they had their own bodyguards because they didn't carry weapons. All they did was look at the dog. And they had somebody who carried a shotgun in the beginning, thus the term shot dog, and the guy with the gun would follow the dog handler. So the commanding officer's talking to Jerry, and he goes, so you saved guys here? And he's looking through, and you did here? He goes, yep. He goes, I got a question for you, Jerry. You're going back to Wisconsin in about a week, right? Yeah. Jerry, how many soldiers' lives is Rebel going to save in Wisconsin? And Jerry just fell apart. He got on that helicopter and went home. And I'll let you read the rest of his story. The last thing I want to tell you about, and then I'll let you go, is my good friend Walt Carey. Here's irony of ironies. Two of the most famous popping bug makers in the country was Bob Guess, who taught me how to fly fish, and Walt Carey, whose namesake is Walt's Poppers. How in the world, out of all the people for me to know, I meet these two super famous people completely by coincidence? Well, Walt spent 29 years in the Navy. When he retired, he was a Command Master Chief. And his last assignment was the USS Forrestal. And he had one supervisor on that aircraft carrier, and his name was Captain. No one messed with the senior enlisted non-commissioned officer on that aircraft carrier, not even the XO. So, and people know that about him and his service in the Navy. What they don't know is how he got in the Navy. He was a forward observer in Korea and spent a year on the front lines. And he said it was as close to hell on earth as he ever experienced. His job was to do reverse counterfire. So he would be in the front, he'd be watching, mortar fire would come in. His job was to try to reverse engineer how to send rounds back. Well, one day they sent a round back, and they heard an explosion, then they heard another explosion, then they heard another explosion, and he'd hit an ammo dump, which he had no idea. He said, well, we never saw anybody over the rank of captain ever. 3 days later, there's a lieutenant colonel on the front lines with us giving everybody medals. And he got to me and he said, Colonel, I don't want your medal. I want to go home. I've been here 60 days past when I'm supposed to be here. I want to go home, sir. Sure enough. 72 hours later, he was back in Virginia, drinking quite a bit. The first night he was home, he slept in. His father came in and shook him awake, and he nearly strangled his father to death because he was asleep. And when he woke up, he was ready to fight. Jerry had such a hard time adjusting. This was when they had, I don't know if anybody, probably not anybody in here old enough to remember, they had the flush commodes where it was like almost in the ceiling, right? And you could pull it and it would flush. Walt was drinking so much, he never wanted to be too far away from getting a drink. He bought whiskey, would take it into the local restaurants and duct tape them to the inside of the flush commode. Well, of course, nobody knew that. Who's going to look in a flush commode? Who's going to look in the back of a toilet? And he had like 5 or 6 restaurants. He said, so wherever I was at, if I decided I needed to drink, it was already there waiting for me. Well, he's at home. Things are going great because, he's home now. Then he gets a letter from the Army. Have you gotten married lately? Nope, not married. Have you enrolled in college? He's like, well, I'm not liking the way this is going. So he goes to the Army, goes to DC, and he goes, hey, I've already got all my battle points. I've got all that stuff. I'm supposed to be I'm past way to be rotated out. And I got my letter right here saying And the recruiter goes, well, it wasn't a recruiter, it was an officer, goes, well, you're going back. He goes, no, I'm not going back to Korea. I'm not going back to the front lines. I've done my duty. I'm not going back. Here's the Army's own letter saying I have fulfilled my requirements. To which the response was, the Army has changed its mind, and you're going back because we don't have enough of your MOS. And he breaks down in front of the guy and says, look, I can't do it. I can't go back. Well, what can I do? He said, well, you can join the military. He goes, I'm in the military. How am I going to join the military? I'm in the Army. He goes, wrong branch. He said, Beau, I literally walked across the hall and went into the Navy, where he stayed for 29 years. I can tell you, interviewing him for this book, he broke down and cried like an 8-year-old child over what he had seen more than 50 years earlier. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter if you fight in Iraq or Afghanistan, or you fought in Korea or Germany or Italy or Vietnam. Those injuries don't go away overnight, but they do get better. And these are 32 success stories that happened because they partnered with people that cared about them. So I would encourage you to be involved with Project Healing Waters, to be involved with other organizations that want to help vets, because there's no shortage of people that need help. I was honored that the men and women let me interview them and share their pain. And I'll tell you right now, honest to God, pardon the pun, it's the closest I've ever come to being a priest in my life. And I say that because, ironically, and I'm not trying to get all churchy on you, the word holy means other. And in the Old Testament, when they wanted something, or New Testament too for that matter, they didn't have exclamation points. They would repeat a word, truly, truly. It's like an exclamation mark. Except when it came to God, then it says holy, 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 other, other, other. The experiences that the men and women I have interviewed is so other than anything I have ever had any concept of. I was honored to be able to spend some time with them. And I would say to you, we don't need any more Brown Mancinis ending their life. And we can make a difference, one fly at a time, one trip at a time. I had a great day today with Mark Signorino and the two guys that were with me. I'm terrible with names. Fortunately, both of them were named Ron. So I could just say, hey, Ron, and I could talk to both guys at the same time. I noticed today a tree that was hanging over the river. I mean, really hanging over. And I'm like, how's that thing not falling in? And I got closer to it. You could see the root ball hanging out. I'm like, that thing's going to collapse any moment now. And I looked and I looked, and I noticed that the roots weren't going down. The roots were going back into the bank. It's got such a good root system, it ain't going anywhere. And that's what we have to do too. We have to put down our roots. And sometimes when we get hurt physically or emotionally or mentally by what we see at work, those roots get cut, or they get damaged, or they don't pull up the water like they should. And they don't take in the sunshine like they should. What I would say to you is find a fly rod and just be. You don't have to work some special program. Just be with the men and women who care about you. And the fly fishing will take care of the rest. Fortunately, your donor has provided a copy for those that want it. It's not an easy read. If you want to read a chapter and put it down, you can. You want to read 2 chapters and put it down, you can. There's no particular order other than the first narrative and the last. But these are real people that are your brothers and sisters, and it was my honor to write about them and to be with you. Thank you very much.